you mentioned it a moment ago about enhancement talent. Now, a lot of people might not know what you mean by that. In layman terms, it basically means you are, I guess, a jobber, or as other people call it, a paid loser.
Well, I have some friends and family that would probably agree with you about that as well, Edward. I appreciate you bringing that up. No.
well,
uh,
well, if you could tell my audience, many of it, my audience might not be familiar with those terms,
yeah,
but what do those terms actually mean? And obviously, it's no disrespect to anybody, because that's how you start your role in wrestling, is by being those types of roles before you get to build up momentum to get further on the card, to get hopefully to become a main eventer and to win world titles.
absolutely. There's a lot of big stars in wrestling who first started off as a jobber. It's a great way to, meet the right people and get your mug on camera. And in 1993, I was only about 6 months into my wrestling career because I was only 19 years old. And I was wrestling on a show in the Midwest. I'm originally from the Chicago area. And I was spotted there by a WCW talent agent, actually two of them, one of which was David Penzer, who became the ring announcer for Monday Nitro,
Yeah.
and also a former wrestler named Bob Roop. And they had approached me and said, look, we think you have a good look. We think you've got some ability. We are looking for some, if you will, jobbers for TV. And, your job is to make their contracted stars look like stars. And even though you don't get the win, you always want to make them look as good as possible by selling and doing everything you're told in the ring. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me. I had a chance to wrestle some big names like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who at the time was stunning Steve Austin.
With
He was an
long
attack.
blonde hair.
Well, the hair was short at that time.
Oh, okay.
He still had the hair, but it was short. It was a short haircut, and he was tagging with Flying Brian Pillman, the late Flying Brian Pillman, in a tag team called the Hollywood Blondes. So I got to wrestle them, and who knew that Steve would become the star that he became? I mean, he certainly had great ability, and he was fantastic even that early in his career. I also wrestled Ravishing Rick Rude in a tag team match where he was tagging with a wrestler named the Equalizer, and they were managed by Kevin Sullivan. I wrestled a team called the Kongs, who were managed by Harley Race. That was in a dark match. So yeah, I had some unique opportunities just about 6 months into my career that I was very thankful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unique opportunities.
And, it's crazy that some of those matches are available freely on YouTube.com, and all you have to do is type in Tommy Tanner. That was your wrestling name back in the day, and they can find those incredible matches with those legendary wrestlers of the time back in those early 90s. And what a crazy life you've lived, because of course you got into wrestling because you were doing bodybuilding. That's how you got into it in the first case, wasn't it? And
yes.
It's just crazy to think you went from doing bodybuilding to pro wrestling, but also doing ring announcing on the side.
Yes.
So I'm guessing then, I want to know is, why did you give up pro wrestling? Because you were so good at it at the time, and you had the physique, you had the ability. I'm sure all the people in the back were probably applauding your praises and saying you can go really far in this in WCW. What was it that you decided to, this is not for me?
Well, at the time I was doing both ring announcing and professional wrestling. And I did the wrestling from 90, maybe late 92 into 93. And it was about 94 that I just started getting more of an interest in pursuing my ring announcing work than wrestling. It was just something I felt like I wanted to do long term. I always dreamt of being an announcer somehow, some way. So wrestling was an opportunity that kind of just came my way. But my true goal was to be a full-time announcer somehow, some way, either in boxing or wrestling. I wasn't sure where I was going to find my home, but I think pro wrestling was just an opportunity that I took advantage of, enjoyed it, had some above average opportunities. And not everybody gets an opportunity to wrestle, for WCW or one of the top tier companies. So very thankful for that experience. I made great friends through that experience that I still stay in touch with even to this day. So very, very thankful for that time.